You make $100,000 a year, and you're broke. Not broke like you can't pay rent, broke like you check your balance and something tightens in your chest, broke like you said yes to a vacation and immediately regretted it, broke like you earn more than 90% of the country and you still feel like you're falling behind. And the worst part? You can't explain it to anyone without sounding insane. Let's go back. There was a version of you, maybe a few years ago, maybe a decade, who had a number that meant safety, that meant finally. That meant you could stop doing the math in your head every time you opened a menu. For most people, that number was $100,000. And the day it happened, the offer letter, the promotion, the slow climb that finally cleared the line, you felt it. Real relief, the kind that sits in your body, not just your head. You went home and you sat with it. For a few weeks, everything felt lighter. The grocery store didn't feel like a negotiation. You booked the flight without spiraling. You tipped without calculating. And you thought, this is it. This is what I worked for. But here's what nobody told you. That feeling has an expiration date. And by the time you notice it's gone, the trap is already closed. It doesn't happen all at once. That's the trick. It happens in decisions that each make complete sense on their own. You move to a nicer apartment, not a crazy one, just one where the hallway doesn't smell like something died and the walls aren't held together by optimism. Makes sense. You've earned it. You get a better car. Nothing flashy, just one that starts reliably in winter, one you don't have to be embarrassed about when you pick someone up. Makes sense. You start eating out more because time has quietly become more precious than money. Makes sense. The gym, the flights home instead of the bus, the grocery store that doesn't feel like a punishment. Makes sense. Makes sense. Makes sense. And then you look at your bank account at the end of the month, and the numbers don't add up. Not because you were reckless, not because you made bad choices, but because each reasonable decision stacked on top of the last one until your life got expensive in a way you never consciously chose. This is the thing nobody puts in the financial literacy course. Your expenses don't grow with your income. They grow with your identity. Here's the moment everything shifts. Pay attention to this. When you were earning less, you compared yourself downward or sideways to people roughly like you. And in that frame, you were probably doing okay, maybe even ahead. But a six-figure income moves you into a new room. And in that room, the colleagues, the neighborhood, the social group that forms around the life you can now afford, everyone has more than you did before. The person at work who takes 4 vacations a year, the couple in your building with the renovation that seemingly never ends, the friend group where someone always suggests the restaurant that makes you check if your card will clear before you agree to go. Here's what happens inside that room. You stop comparing yourself to who you were. You start comparing yourself to who surrounds you. And here's the thing about that. It happens automatically. It happens below the level of thought. You don't decide to feel behind. You just do. Research has a name for this. But the name doesn't matter. What matters is the feeling. The $70,000 earner surrounded by $50,000 earners feels comfortable. The $100,000 earner surrounded by $150,000 earners feels stretched. Same city, same rent, different mirror. And what the mirror shows you isn't your actual financial position. It shows you your distance from the people closest to you. That distance is what you're actually spending to close. Stop for a second. Think about your last 3 significant purchases, not the big planned ones, the spontaneous ones, the upgrade, the dinner, the thing you justified quickly and didn't think about again. Ask yourself honestly, did you want those things? Or did you just not want to be the person who didn't have them? Because there's a version of your spending that has nothing to do with what you enjoy and everything to do with the social tax of existing at your income level. The cost of being seen as someone who belongs here. the invisible subscription fee for the life you've signed yourself into. Nobody talks about this, but it's real, and it costs more than your Netflix. You're not buying things. You're buying belonging, and belonging, it turns out, requires constant renewal. Here's the part that really gets people. The anxiety got worse. Not gone, not smaller, worse. When you had less, money fear was simple, legible. You didn't have enough. That was the whole problem. And simple problems, even terrible ones, at least make sense. But now you have a mortgage, which means you have something to lose in a way you never did renting. You have a lifestyle that requires a certain income to maintain. And you know, somewhere in the back of your head, that income is not guaranteed. You have colleagues who earn more, which means you have a trajectory that feels like it has to keep going upward, because sideways now feels like going backward. More income, more exposure, more to protect. This is the inversion nobody warns you about. The richer you get, the more precisely you understand how quickly it could disappear. And that understanding, that clarity, is its own kind of poverty. You don't feel richer, you feel responsible. And responsibility at scale is exhausting in a way that being broke never quite was. Now here's where it would be easy to get angry, to blame something, to find a villain, but there isn't one. No one designed this to hurt you. No committee decided that $100,000 earners should feel financially anxious. It's not a conspiracy, it's just mechanics. The mechanics of comparison, which are hardwired into human beings, not installed by corporations. The mechanics of markets, which produce more things to want faster than income can grow. The mechanics of advertising, which doesn't need to be sinister to be effective. It just needs to be everywhere. And it is everywhere. Quietly, constantly, making your current life feel like a slightly earlier draft of the life you actually want. The system doesn't take your money, it changes what you think you need. And then you hand it over yourself, freely, convinced that this particular thing, this particular upgrade, will be the one that finally makes the gap close. It won't, but that's not the darkest part. The darkest part is what happens next. You pick a new number, $150,000, $200,000, maybe more. You look at your life and you run the numbers and you think, if I just had this much more, I could actually breathe. And that belief feels rational because you can point to specific things that money would solve. The debt cleared, the bigger place, the school for the kids, real things. So you push harder, chase the promotion, take the job with more pressure and more pay, work the hours, and sometimes, not always, but sometimes, you get there, and for a few weeks, everything feels lighter, and then the life expands, and the reference group shifts, and the baseline quietly recalibrates, and you're standing in a nicer apartment with a better car and a higher title, still doing the math. Not because they're broken, not because they lack discipline or gratitude, but because the game was always structured so that enough lives exactly one level above wherever you are. The finish line moves, not to punish you, just because that's what finish lines do when there's money to be made in the running. So where does that leave you? You have the income you worked for. You have the life that income built. You have colleagues who have more of it. And the quiet awareness that you're supposed to want what they have, or at least pretend you don't. You have a number that was supposed to mean something, and you have the slow, uncomfortable realization that the thing you were chasing was never really about money. It was about the feeling you thought money would buy. The feeling of being enough, of having enough, of being in a place where the math finally stopped. But the math doesn't stop. It just gets more sophisticated. And here's the question that stays with you after this video ends. The one you won't be able to shake. If the goalpost moved every time you got close, if enough was always defined by what the people around you had, then were you ever actually running toward something? Or were you just running?